I mean, I am living a life that is 10,000 times more incredible than I thought it would be on my way up here the first time. And it only gets better.
Welcome back to Recovery APN. Andy, how you doing?
I'm good, pal. How are you?
Doing well. Excited for this episode, huh?
Me too. Yeah, we got a good guest today. I'm pumped for her.
Yeah. As we get these going, right, it's always interesting to hear a common theme of our clients coming through their journey, coming to APN, but they're also different.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we talk about the success stories, but inside everyone's story, everyone has their own path and their unique journey to that path. And everyone's personality comes out, and how the recovery and the health and the balance, it goes different routes. And to see Katy where she's at is I'm pumped for it.
Yeah, it's exciting, right? And just talking to her beforehand, right? You hear the nerves, but you also hear the excitement, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I want her to talk about, right, is why she's doing it, right?
Yeah.
And like it'll be easy for me to talk about, right? But I'd like to hear it from her and how authentic she is. And yes, it's cool to be on a podcast here to talk about your story, but there are real reasons why, right? And that's what excites me about this podcast, is giving them the ability to touch other people's lives.
Yeah, and to be uniquely useful.
There it is.
And I'm going to do my best to only use that in certain podcasts, but that's my term I always go to. But again, the ability to be helpful where other people might not be able to be helpful. And not because I read a book or because I studied an extra chapter in college, but because of my life experiences, because of your life experiences, Dan, or our guest Katy's life experiences, make us useful in different ways.
Yes, I will try to refrain from using my life experiences.
Attaboy.
Growth, right?
Yeah.
Growth.
We're seeing growth right in front of us, Keith. It's unbelievable.
Right in front of us.
Dan has a tendency to be a little sensitive, and we're, that being said, we're going to just try to focus on Katy and her story, not me and Dan's.
Yeah, so speaking of, please welcome our guest, Katy.
Hi, guys.
How you doing?
Nervous and excited.
Yeah, I think it's natural, right? Like, nerves are good, right? But there's nothing to be nervous about. You have two knuckleheads from New Jersey here.
I'm aware. Yeah.
What do you mean you're aware? We're just nothing but class. Class.
So Katy, right? Like, number one, really appreciate you coming, right?
Thanks for having me.
It's Saturday. You have a family, so on behalf of like ourselves and APN, it really means a lot for us that you came.
I'm honored that, I'm here.
As a local, how was the drive? How was good old Route 70 this morning?
Oh, it was gorgeous. The traffic was light. It was sunny and bright, and it was so nice.
Where are you from again?
Littleton.
Yeah, but where were you born and raised?
I was born in California, but moved just after that and was born and raised in Northbrook, Illinois.
All right.
So
close to Chicago?
I mean, I could say I spent 2 weeks in California. So really, I grew up in Northbrook.
And then, but how long you now been in Colorado?
Oh gosh, that's going to speak to my age. After I graduated high school, I moved out here 21 years ago.
We're doing a live bio here today.
No, I like it. No, it's interesting. And I wasn't a part of this, but Katy is actually a star amongst our audience. Prior to this podcast, we had other videos on YouTube, and she had the most liked YouTube that we ever produced. Is that correct, Keith?
Very correct.
Sure is. Katy is the star of the Inside Recovery series we did.
Check it out.
It's crazy.
Check it out on YouTube. She did a great job.
Thanks, guys.
So we're bringing her back. We're double dipping here.
Yeah. No, this is good though.
Is that a bad expression for for the pod?
I would say doubling down.
Doubling down. We're doubling down.
It's all bad, guys.
No, it's good. Listen, it's good. Clearly, the audience likes you.
Yeah.
Right. So we're the lucky ones. I guess as we start and kick things off, one of the first questions we ask, right, is obviously you were a client of APN, but I'm kind of curious on what brought you to APN, right? And it's like, was it like a specific bottom that you want to talk about? Was it a life journey that brought you there? Kind of curious on like how that decision came, but more importantly, like what was going on before you even got to APN?
Yeah, sure. So I have a long history of childhood trauma complex and PTSD and, big family roles that create a lot of character defects that just slowly over time got bigger and bigger. I was really good at stuffing and faking and pretending. And, I did therapy and that kind of stuff and group stuff when I was in high school. But obviously it wasn't enough. So over time, life builds. And when you had more kids and the husband's traveling, and then COVID hit. And you can't stop the walls closing in anymore. I couldn't run from it anymore. And I was already kind of on this path of destruction, memories popping up, just feeling very vulnerable and small, having a lot of trouble with my mental health and total denial. And so I had started drinking a little heavier, but it wasn't a big deal, I thought, of course, like always, right? And then when COVID hit, I started drinking very heavily. But, you know, my husband and I were home.
Yeah.
We're not going anywhere. Nobody's driving.
Kids are getting fed. You know,
yes.
Everyone's getting the bats, or everyone's.
We're doing nothing.
Yeah.
Nobody's changed their clothes in 3 days. I'm just kidding. And then I had an extremely painful memory come up this summer of 2020 that I was unaware of. And it didn't stop playing in my head. It was constant 24-hour over and over. I could feel the floor. I could smell the room. I could touch it, feel it, hear it.
Oh, wow.
And it was terrifying. And so I drank more.
Yeah, numb it.
And it numbed for a while. And then I would drink more and more and more. And I was totally out of control. I was never sober. My house was chaos. And I did that for about 6-8 months, probably. Wow. That it was fast. It was really fast. And I come from a long line of alcoholics and addicts and, generational trauma. And I was always so aware. I was not aware at all. I mean, that was like a joke when it's like, you can watch out for it. Yeah, no, you can't.
Well, real quick on that, I think being aware is one thing. And I think it's a great thing to be aware of why I might drink, but I still need to correct underneath. You know, like knowing is one thing, but what am I doing to fix it? And that's probably what brought you to APN, because you knew about it, but like, how do I fix that?
I had no control.
Yeah.
Absolutely none. Literally no control. The second I would have an idea of a drink, I mean, you had to have that drink or there was nothing you could do.
No, it's interesting, right? You talk about like family history, right? And you having experience with individuals in your family that have characterized themselves as addicts or alcoholics, but not knowing like the intangibles, like internally, right? Thinking that like that'll never be me, right? Or like I see what it's done to my family or other things outside my life. That'll never be me, right? And like I could talk about that because that happened to me. You know, I'm very relatable where it's like I have family. When I was 16, my dad got sober, right? So I was in it, right?
I was 16 too when my parents got sober, yeah.
And like he would go to AA meetings, right? He would do all these things. And so like it wasn't like I was oblivious. I think I even went to meetings with him, right? Yet like, and I was like, that's not me, right? I can control it, right? Blah, 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 blah. And later down the line, like that was me. So it's interesting how it happens where you're so apparent to it, right? You see it and you don't want it to happen, but it happens right before your eyes.
I was determined to not let it happen. I was like, I am not going to let this continue. I'm going to break the cycle. I'm going to be aware. I'm going to be open. And as, any good addict or alcoholic knows, you have no control. Yeah. You're focusing too much on it, and then you're going to create the situation anyway.
Yeah.
So, and my parents have been sober 22 years now.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was the lowest I've ever felt in my entire life. And there was one particular day where I was laying on the couch completely wasted, crying because I didn't want to do this anymore. I didn't have a choice. I had no control. I was surviving. I wanted to love my kids. I wanted to hug my husband. I wanted to function.
Yeah.
And I literally couldn't. Yeah. I had no choice. And there was like this one half-second moment of clarity, and I opened my eyes and it was chaos. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I got up and I started looking for treatment centers.
Yeah.
And 3 days later, I came here.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Surrender again, like we talk about it all the time. That's the moment of clarity that comes in. The fact that comes in is, it's unbelievable.
I have no idea where the fuck it came from, but I thank God every day for that moment.
It's great.
Yeah, it's like, we talked about it before. It's like those God shots, right?
Yeah. The term that comes up a lot is, a spiritual experience. People say like the white light, and I would say that most people don't have this white light, the burning bush moment. But I would also argue that if you take all your aha moments from when you got sober or the day you had that clarity till now, and you said, hey, because you might have one a day, one a week, whatever. If you take all those and put them into one moment, boom, that's the white light.
It is magic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is magic. And so they happen all the time, and when you least expect it, and they're just magic. It's the only way to explain it. And they're like, you stop in your tracks and you're like, whoa. And you don't believe, you're like, yeah, I don't believe your, baloney and your bullshit. Yeah, all these things are they do happen.
That's awesome.
So that took place. I spoke to a gentleman in admissions. My insurance was one of them that would cover it because I couldn't go anywhere unless insurance would cover a portion. And I noticed that here I read that there was a really amazing trauma intensive program.
Yeah.
And then I didn't think I was an alcoholic. I was like, I just have a really bad relationship with it. All the good stuff I see all the time now. And I was like, I've got to work on the foundation. I've got to work on the trauma. Obviously, with the new one, I have to work through that. So that's why I chose APN.
Okay.
And so I came up the night of October 2nd, 2020.
So you mentioned that you had that moment of clarity, right? And now it's up to you to be willing to find a place. I know a lot of people go about it in different ways. What was the process of you in finding a treatment center?
Yeah, how'd you find us?
I actually started with my sister and said, will you connect me with your therapist? Maybe she knows somebody. I actually didn't go to the internet at all. I actually was connected with someone who works at APN. So all of our siblings, we all are very aware. We talk openly about our childhood and our traumas and our successes and our, where we stumble. And my sister has been in therapy in the Denver area for a while. So I reached out to her. I knew, even though I'm vulnerable, I could call her. And I said, can you connect me with your therapist? I've got to find somebody. I don't know where to start. I would love to talk to her. And so her therapist did call me. And she said, hey, I know of this woman who has resources, and she actually works for a treatment center here in Colorado. I was determined to stay local because I have kids, right?
Sure.
Had to have some kind of control. And I ended up talking to someone who works here. And so then I looked on the internet. I didn't look on the internet at all because let's be real, I am AOL old.
Yeah.
Still have my AOL address.
I was about to say, when I emailed you yesterday, I saw that and I was
Shut
like,
up.
whoa.
Shout out AOL.
I have had my AOL address for 25 years.
Instant messenger all day, every day.
Unbelievable.
Those were the days, man.
Yeah, they were. Still wish I had a beeper. Yeah.
Page me. So you speak to someone at APN, right? You go to the internet, you do your thing. You're like, all right, I'm going. So before we get into the experience at APN, you mentioned that you have a husband and 3 kids.
Yes.
What was the conversation like with them before you said hey, mommy, what was that experience like before you left the door to go to APN? What was that conversation like with them?
So I told the kids that I was going up to the mountains to go to a hospital to fix my brain.
Okay.
My husband is in dialysis. He manages dialysis nurses. And so it was a great way to use daddy's nurses fix their kidneys and then they get better.
Yeah.
That's what mommy's doing, only for her brain.
Can I ask you how old your kids are?
Sure. I've got 12, 9, and 5.
Okay.
And what was their reaction?
They were sad, but they actually took it really well. Kids are amazing. Yeah. They're smart and resilient, and they understand way more than we think they do. And they knew there was something wrong. They knew mommy wasn't happy. She wasn't well. She knew, they knew I had changed fast over time from being a very interactive, always there mom to I couldn't even form sentences because I was so low.
Yeah.
And were there a lot of nerves from your, and I asked this question because I didn't go through this experience, but I'm sure others do that have kids. How tough is it for you to have that conversation with them?
It's not, actually. My 12-year-old and we actually have had the full conversation about me being an alcoholic and what that means and that it runs in our family. My 9-year-old actually heard me on a Zoom meeting and said, what's an alcoholic? And I said, it's somebody who wants to stop drinking. So there, I've found ways age appropriately to explain to them
simple
these things, but I have nothing to hide. Education for them is so important. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it because that's mean.
Yeah.
What a dick move. So, and my husband's the same way. Yeah. We explain things to them that they can understand at their age. And we talk openly and honestly about anything.
And you're not lying to them.
No.
Yeah. Good.
No.
It's interesting, right? And I go back to my family, right? My dad was getting sober. I was 16. My sister was 13. And at that point, he didn't go away because he was like supporting our family, but he was going to meetings every single day. So we knew that there was like he wasn't present.
Something different.
He wasn't present, right? He wasn't coming home at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock after the workday. But he made it his point to involve us, right? Hey, Dan, I'm going to an AA meeting. Like I was just starting to get into things, so I didn't want to go.
They know I go to meetings. I'll be like, I'm going to my support meetings. You know, it's not new for them. I mean, I think I have it in my journal. I hit 135 meetings in the first 90 days of sobriety.
It's crazy.
And and it was all on Zoom.
Yeah, yeah.
If it wasn't for Zoom, I never would have stepped foot in an AA room.
And it's crazy too, because Zoom, you hear people say Zoom was difficult to get sober in because you're presently not there. But to hear your experience,
I never would have shown my face.
Yeah,
that vulnerability of feeling like it's written all over my face and people can see through me and I'm this big. I never would have done it.
Yeah, it's crazy for everybody how it's different.
So,
and now I crave them.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need a meeting.
Yeah.
It's weird.
So now, right, you make the decision, you have the conversation with your kids, you get in the car, and from start to finish, I'm kind of curious about like, your experience at APN. You know, what was the first thought going through your head? What was the first feelings when you got here? What was the growth like while you were here?
Something difficult, something great. What do you?
I have them all.
Yeah.
So I know my husband was extremely relieved. He'd had lots of conversations with me, been like, very nicely trying to, I'm seeing this is a problem, we can't continue to be around it, and so it was a sense of relief in my house when, I left. And the ride up, I was at the point where I was so numb and relieved and scared and sad that I didn't really have a whole lot of feelings, for sure, at least intense. I just was. I just was. It's like I was just there.
Yeah.
And it's not like it was a drive I didn't know. It's not like I was in a state I didn't know. And I think that helped. And I'm not sure I would have had many emotions otherwise.
Yeah.
And I'm an emotion-filled person, and I used to, everything was emotion-based before. And so I think that shocks me that I was just numb.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then I got up there and I got checked in, and there was an amazing, delicious dinner waiting for me.
There you go.
I got in at like 7.
Right.
So that was cool. The intake process, everybody was so nice. And as you guys know, I love to talk. So it made it much easier, but everybody was nice, and it wasn't like sterile or like you didn't feel like you were going to be put in a straitjacket. You didn't feel like people were looking down on you. I didn't feel uncomfortable. I felt nervous because I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been to a rehab or treatment facility. I'd never been in one. And so I really felt okay. And I think the weight that was lifted the second I walked in that door, knowing, okay, like this is where I need to be. Like this is where I'm supposed to be. If I have any chance of any type of life, of any happiness, like this is where it is. And I was like, this is my only chance. Like this is my only chance. I cannot be away from my kids again. I can't do this to my husband again, blah, blah, blah. And so I took it real seriously.
And did that desperation or that intensity or that willingness, did that falter at all, or did that stay for your...
It grew.
That's awesome.
I was willing to do anything and everything to learn and grow and work on myself. I went to all the classes. I tried everything at least once. I never missed therapy. I never missed group. I talked so openly and honestly that mouths would drop in group.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm here, right?
Yeah, that's why we're here.
And I did all the processing. I asked for more. I did more when I needed it. I did all the assignments and projects. I actually did my first assignment in quarantine before it was assigned to me. And I am not that person.
Well, tell us about your therapist. Who was your therapist? Did you enjoy that process? What did you get from, like, how special was that process?
So my therapist the first time I was here was Laura, and I love her. She's so cute. My thing always was, I don't want to find another therapist to have to explain my fucking life story again.
Yeah, again.
Because it's too much.
Yeah.
I can't do it. And so that was hard for me in the beginning, and she always could see through it. So irritating. And she'd give me the look, and I'd be like, oh,
Fuck.
I could still see the look. And she would just get real quiet and look at me, and I'd be like, I know I have to do that, don't I? Yep, you do. She was very patient, very kind. You know, I never felt with anybody, but especially my therapist, like they were better than me. They knew more. They were more important.
Yeah.
It was like more like a teacher who knew you really well and genuinely cared. If that's a dorky way to explain it.
That's a great way to explain it.
That you could really trust, like that one teacher you could go to and cry to, and they would be like, all right, you know, let's sit down and talk this through, and then you could go back to class like nothing was wrong.
But still then also call you out on your shit.
Oh, hell yeah. And I'm one of those that I need that.
Yeah.
I don't like it when you make it all pretty.
I think we all do, right? No. It's like they talk about like the easier, softer way that never works, right? You always want to go to the place that's going to challenge you.
But unless you want that because you don't want to be held accountable.
Right.
Yeah. Cosign my shit.
Right.
Yeah, cosign my bullshit.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the first time you hear was Laura. So it seems that there was another experience you had afterwards.
There was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was here for 29 days the first time, and I went home October 31st, something like that. Anyway, November 1st, something, because I missed Halloween with the kids. And I was still sober, and I was doing my work. I was doing IOP. I was doing all the stuff, going to all my meetings, implementing the tools and strategies I had learned. And life still was so unmanageable. I was so scared. I was vulnerable. I was crying. I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, I have to go back. I can't do this. I cannot continue to do this. I didn't do enough work, which I'm sure this will surprise you. They told me I wasn't ready to leave.
But hold on. And for the record, how many people think that way? So many, but it's rare to say, you know what? I need to go back and to actually go back.
It was the hardest thing I've ever done in that conversation when I sat my husband down. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
To be like, I'm not failing and I don't have enough.
Yeah.
To admit that is really difficult.
Yeah.
And for him to understand that as someone who's outside who doesn't have any experience with this was very hard for him to understand, and he was totally supportive because he could see it. Obviously, it was all the time. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I was crying all the time. I couldn't, figure out what I was feeling or where I was, and so I came back January 5th.
So, and just to clarify, you leave APN, right? Mm-hmm. And during that span, I guess from November 1st to January 1st, you were still sober.
Absolutely.
Going to AA meetings. So there was no necessary relapse, right? It was
no, none. And actually on November 21st, I specifically remember on a 3 p.m. Zoom meeting, I introduced myself for the first time as, hi, I'm Katy, I'm an alcoholic. And
Amazing.
The entire Zoom cheered because they knew who I was. Because I would say, hi, I'm Katy, and I don't know what my relationship with alcohol is, but it's not good.
Anything not to say, I'm an alcoholic. Right. Yeah, I get it.
I knew that I could not drink again. And my husband said, I cannot have you drinking.
No, it's interesting, right? Because I think with addicts and alcoholics, there's such like a black and white relationship with life, mm-hmm. right? And like for me, I asked you that question because a lot of people have the experience of going to treatment and relapsing, and it's very black or white. Like, hey, I relapsed, I need to go back to treatment. But to hear your story, right, and hear that decision making in your experience where it's like, hey, I didn't drink again, but I'm still not all there, right? I still need more work. And I think that's even more difficult than the relapse itself, because it's like you have that people to justify in your brain. It's like, well, I didn't drink, I don't need it. Well, but your willingness, right? The
fire inside of me, and is still there, it was still raging. I wanted it. I was willing. I knew I needed to take literally do whatever it took to, and sobriety is not just physical. Like the foundation, I see most of the time, and for me, for sure, was the underlying trauma.
Yeah.
I had to get down there, and I had to dig in deep, and I had to really open up. Yeah. And so I knew that, like, I didn't meet that the first time, and that was on me, but there was a fire that was lit inside of me, and I found love for myself here the first time I was here, and I've never ever loved myself, and with that, and then that little bit of progress and feeling proud inside. Like, I was like, I will do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
I will fight till the end of my life.
And I think what's important to recognize is that those 2 months prove that alcohol is never our problem. It's the symptom, right? And so, hey, take alcohol away.
Yep.
But if I haven't dealt with that problem underneath of it,
hey, it's still fucking there.
Yeah, but alcohol was the only thing that coped. It was the only medicine I ever used that worked, that quote unquote worked and made me feel.
It worked really well.
Very quickly, very fleeting, right? So to take the alcohol away and just have that misery and that mental health and in that trauma, I think that's like, I think we can all relate to that.
Well, yeah, it's like taking ibuprofen for a headache, and when it wears off, the headache's still there.
Yeah, just four Advil every 4 hours.
So then you keep taking Advil,
Yeah.
or you just keep drinking.
Yeah. I think that's huge to point out for you, for anyone listening to this, right? Because everyone thinks, hey, the opiate's my problem, the alcohol's my problem, the cocaine's my problem. Yeah, it is, but really it's your answer, and underneath of that is the problem. What's driving this issue, this problem with alcohol that you have?
I had to take away the alcohol in order to do the hard stuff, to do the really intense hard work.
But that's hard to do, Katy. You know what I mean?
It actually was the easiest part of it for me.
Well, I think saying, hey, I need to go back, in that, like, oh, it's like you dropped the 1,000-pound weight right then and there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It did. The second I knew I was coming back and I was filling out all the stuff, even though I was empty in sorts, I was so excited.
Yeah.
I was so excited to get back here. I was so excited to see people and, the staff, the RAs, to hug them, to be here again. It was such a safe place.
So dive into that second experience with us. Tell us what it was like.
Oh, it was amazing. It was, and then I knew what to expect. I knew what it looked like. I knew how it worked. I knew the rules. And I'm a rule follower, except for the speed limit, but that's okay. And so I knew what to expect. I knew where everything was, and not getting lost in the giant long hallways. And so it was exciting. It, like, that fire, like, was like raging. It was crazy. It was like, okay, I picked right back up where I left off, only with like more insight about what it's really going to take out there. Because you can hear it, but it doesn't know. You have no idea.
Yeah.
And so this time I had a different therapist, Lana, who, that woman is, I don't have words for her. She's the most incredible person I've ever met in my life.
That's awesome.
See, I told you I'm trying not to cry. And I just dove right back in, and I told her, I said, let's do the hard stuff. Like, I want to do it all. Like, you tell me, like, where you think we should go, and I'll let you know, like, I'm not in a place right now. Let's revisit it this afternoon. Or challenge me with an assignment. Try something new. And we did. And the way she, even in group, the way she'd always do her little pause and do this. Still see it. And she'd look up and she would come up with the most brilliant way of explaining things, or to come up with a scenario, paint a picture. And sometimes she would surprise us with assignments, and they were so powerful, and they were something you didn't know you needed. And I never knew how, damn it, every time, Lana, you knew what you were doing. And she would be like, dude, but not in a way like you're an idiot, or you don't like I never had that sense of, I don't know how to describe it, but
Like looking down.
Never
on
felt
you.
judged.
never,
Yeah.
never. And
Wanted you to dig deeper.
yeah, well, she really cared, and she could, relate, and she'd be able to describe what you're trying to describe in a feeling or a sensation, and she would nail it.
Yeah.
And you're like, holy shit, you
just nailed it.
you got it. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't from somebody who's read 19,000 textbooks, has a degree, and comes in here and tells me what the fuck to do.
Right.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so and we were wearing masks most of the time that second time. And so her eyes, if you've ever seen her eyes, holy shit, they're beautiful. They're amazing. And so you would get used to the look in the eyes.
Yeah.
And I can still do the look where she would look at me and be like, really? I see right through it. and she wouldn't have to say anything by the end. And I would get that look and I'd be like, fine.
Yeah, take your eyes.
Fine,
Yeah.
you win. But her voice and what she would say in response to what I'm working through internally pops into my head on almost a daily basis still.
That's great.
And Laura, her cute little, like, I still hear it.
Yeah.
While you were at the lodge, I want to kind of touch upon like your family. Did you do any of our family therapy while you were here
Yes.
to work on the relationship with your husband or your kids? I know that they were supportive, but listen, like we'd be blinded not to say like there are challenges in that, right?
That was difficult.
And I'm kind of curious on like, again, it's tough for me to talk about that because I don't have that experience, but I would love to hear what you went through, what those feelings were like, what that process was like to go through that family therapy and the challenges that you faced, but also the growth and the support.
Yeah,
Great question, Dan.
Yeah, that is a good question. So if it wasn't for COVID, I never would have come here.
Like, thank God for COVID. It's weird to say, but like,
I thank God for it every day.
Yeah.
Because I was such an active and sorry, I lose my thought. I was such an active and like participant parent. I was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
So I was always there. I'd been away from my kids maybe 4 nights at most, like, back to back. And it was like, what are the moms at school pickup going to think? What is, this friend going to think? What if I don't show up here? What if Rich is always with the kids? What is everybody going to think? And for me, that was my life. That's what gave me the fake worth that I had. And that was a real fear. And so because the world was shut down, that allowed me to come here.
yeah.
And with that said, though, I still was away from my kids. I'll go to the end of the earth for my kids.
Absolutely.
My husband's my best friend. I'm not away from my husband very, very much. He travels a lot, but we're always together. And so it was like those things that give me the strength that I want most when I'm hurting or I'm sick, I'm going to be far away from. So that was definitely a new experience. And also learning that, hey, I can do these things without them next to me. I was able to call them, check in on them, video, call them. And I did that every morning.
Thank God.
Every morning.
Yeah.
And that was where a lot of my strength came from. Because even if I was low or feeling down or, character defects or raging, it was that little strand, that little thread I could hang on to.
Yeah.
Was to see their faces and hear their voices and fight that much harder.
Sure.
So, I wasn't cut off. Yeah, you might have to go into an office to use a phone or an iPad, that's given by APN or whatnot. But, I was grateful for that communication. And, the family therapy, I'd sit there with Laura or Lana, on Zoom or the family therapist, with my husband. And we'd talk real open and honest. And it was important. It was essential. So.
Yeah, I think
it's
scary, right? It's scary to like when you've never been that honest with a peer, family, or your significant other, and having to do that. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like when I had to do that, like I was scared about the reaction, but you don't realize how much the other
I had
side
nothing left to lose.
Yeah.
It was all or nothing.
Well, I'm curious, like after that, and fast forwarding, like, are you see the fruits of that labor now, like in your marriage now and in your relationship with your kids now? Like, what does that look like?
Yes. So I could like talk on hours for this. So I'll start with Brene Brown is like my favorite human being in the world. And I listen to a lot of her books and read a lot of her stuff and still to this day use our DBT book too. So when I left the second time, I took with me the importance of always checking your intention, which is the thing that Lana taught me that's the most important. Is checking that before you pause, you check that. And then the importance of being vulnerable, that it's not a negative thing. And so that's what I ran with, that, and then radical acceptance, saving grace, those 3 things, which sounds easy and it's fucking not.
Acceptance is difficult, especially driving in traffic or something. Like, this guy cut me off.
Right, and then you have to think, oh my gosh, what if like they're trying to get to the hospital because their husband is on, a ventilator, and you don't know. What if that person left that cart there because they have a broken ankle and they're doing their best? Like,
yeah,
all those things.
What a gift.
And then you get irritated with yourself, and it's like, settle down. Yeah. And so,
talking about your family.
Thank you. And so it became very apparent that my husband and we're so close that our identity was almost one.
Yeah.
So we worked really hard with pushback from him. But I told him I would have times where he would push back and I would say, look at me. Like, I will never give up on me. I will never give up on you. I will never give up on us, our family. I was like, and I've told you before, I will not allow anybody or anything to get in the way of my recovery, even myself.
Yeah.
So fucking back off.
Because without that, right? Without sobriety,
I had nothing.
Yes.
So, and he got it pretty quick that I was serious, and he was grateful, but it's weird. It's different.
Well, yeah.
It's navigating new things. So we started to slowly have our own identities while still keeping that incredible bond, which ended up being much stronger.
Yeah.
Being able to talk about how we feel, what we need, like dear man the shit out of each other, and really hear each other, because a lot of times we talk and we couldn't hear each other because there's so much passion in our relationship that we needed to learn to like set that aside and really hear each other. And so it took a long time, and we kept working, and so we are two different people.
Sure.
And it's cool because out of that came, we're best friends first and foremost, and second, we're husband and wife.
Yeah.
And that was cool.
Yeah.
And so with my kids, I listened to a book from Brene Brown on parenting and shame and guilt. And I completely changed the way I parent. Again, it was like, my kids are not all the same. I cannot parent them the same way.
Yeah.
Also, I cannot parent them with how I wanted to be parent. I'm creating the exact same cycle.
Yeah. Generational trauma.
What?
Yep.
Holy shit, I'm a dick.
Yeah.
Like, and I didn't realize it. I thought I was giving them everything I didn't have, and so that it would never happen to them. No. And I was so closed off to how like broken their environment was and how they didn't have the things I didn't have because I was giving it too much.
Yeah.
I was trying too hard.
Yeah.
So I started parenting very differently and differently for each kid. And it took a while. And my kids are like, oh my, they're blessed. It's so cool. And they're happy and they're healthy and they're making so much progress on themselves. And now I have boundaries and they respect them and I respect their boundaries. And it's adorable when a 4-year-old looks at an 8-year-old and says, Liam, when you take my toys without asking, it hurts my feelings. And what I need from you is to not do that. And if you can't, I'm not playing with you anymore.
That's what you get.
That
from
moment was the
meetings.
funniest shit I've ever experienced in my life. And I was like, I must be doing something right.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, sorry. What? You're not going to just pummel your brother? Like, it was cool. And now I hear my kids and I listen to what they need. And in turn, I have naturally reparented myself without even knowing it.
Yeah.
And I pull out the feeling wheel quite often with my oldest.
Oh,
Sit down, we pick
he
out.
loves that.
It works really well.
Yeah.
Pick out the primary, give them some time. Okay, what are your secondary feelings? What are your tertiary feelings? Now let's revisit. And then we get to the root of the problem. And
But Mom, I just want to have a sleepover with my friends.
yeah, right. So, and it's, I never, there was no way I was capable of these things.
That's great.
I was too broken for anything. That's why I never tried.
Yeah.
I was told that. I felt that. I saw that. And I'm fucking not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
It's great.
And it's incredible. And I have broken that generational cycle. And I am fucking proud of that.
That's great.
No, it's amazing. It truly is, right? And someone that had to go through that like dear man process, right? And institute
hated
that.
it so much
No,
in the
right?
beginning.
But it makes sense, right?
It works so well.
Right, and to have your kids say it, right? Like, everyone has the way to institute it into their lives, right? Maybe it's not like going down the list, but like to be able to articulate how you feel and explain why you feel that way.
I still have that sheet, the handout from APN.
I guess another question I had for you is, instead of Andy and I sitting here talking to you, like if your kids were here and your husband was here, like if you were to predict what they would say about you and your journey, what were some things that they would share that they've seen through your growth and the change that you've made?
I think, with my oldest, I'll start with him. He definitely would say, I'm more fun. I'm more patient. I don't yell as much. I let them do more.
I don't yell as much.
Seriously.
Yeah. As much got me.
Right? I allow them to experience things for themselves. I don't tell them how to do everything. For him, that's a big thing. He and I are very similar. Both, very ADHD, sensory processing disorder, OCD, kind of very controlling, like very extreme emotions. And so he really likes that I'll be like, no, you go do it. He's like, really? He's like, thanks, Mom. My middle one would say that I take time for him. Yeah. He's such an easy kid. And so he was forgotten a lot.
The lost child, yeah.
That I didn't mean. And I take time. I will sit down and look at him and be like, listen, I hear you, and it's still not okay. Yeah. Like, let's talk about this. Even if he gets frustrated, he's angry, and that time for him is priceless. And then the little one, oh man, that kid is so cute. He loves to have fun and snuggle, and he's very mad that Daddy's already married to me because he wants to marry me. He will get very upset with my husband. And we do more of the independent experiences instead of him just always being there.
Yeah.
My children are independent human beings who deserve independent time, and they deserve to be treated that way. Yeah. And so they feel like they are their own person instead of being grouped or an annoyance and I go have more fun with them, roll in the dirt, take them snow tubing. We go to but it's more, there's joy, there's presence. I'm mindful, I'm grounded, I'm aware. And like, I stop and I'm still, which if you remember when you first met, I was not still. I couldn't sit through a movie. I had to vacuum or something. And the other night is a perfect example, and then I'll touch on the stuff with my husband.
Great.
The other night, my kiddo, he was really tired, the 5-year-old George, and he hasn't asked for this since he was little, and he goes, Mommy, I want to lay in your bed. I want to lay with you and fall asleep. I was like, okay. Laid down, he instantly fell asleep, and I laid there with him, no phone, no TV, like 20, 25 minutes, and I'm like, this is what it's about. This right here, feeling it, living in it, sucking all of that in, like just
absorbing it.
And it was, yeah. I mean, slowing down, and, with my husband, I hear him, I check my intentions. I 10th step a lot. Damn it, AA. And I'll be like, okay, where was I selfish? Where was I dishonest? Am I being a dick? What character defects are coming up? And, what part am I playing in this? Because I did a lot of projecting on him. Mm-hmm. I wrote the narrative for him in the way that he looked at me, and it was always how I thought I should be treated because I wasn't worthy. And I also would blame him for a lot. And my husband he's one of those you don't find very often. Plus he's pretty. But he is patient and kind and loving and supportive. And he doesn't go far. And, I was really selfish. I would say, no, we're going to do it this way. I would control a lot of things. And I didn't know that or understand it. Very aware of character defects now. And so I did a lot of recognizing and apologizing and stepping back and changing those things. So much so that he was terrified that I was going to grow so much I wouldn't love him anymore. Mm-hmm. So I had to do a lot of reassuring. he's learned to be like patient with me instead of automatically assume an old pattern of behavior is there.
Yeah.
So, and it's helped him to be, he's very empathetic and compassionate, especially with his employees. And he'll take that much longer to sit and listen because he knows, you know what? Everybody's got a struggle. He was always like that, but it's
more compassion out of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, through it, which is special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting, and I kind of wanted to highlight something you spoke about before we went like live here.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, what's he doing?
And
where's he going?
We talked about like why you were in this chair today, right? And I think it's important for people to know, right? Obviously, you have a good relationship with APN. You're fond of the facility, fond of the people who work here, but there's a deeper like meaning, right, of why you're sitting here. And like I think it's important. Like I'm always curious to know why people, you know, accept this is just because like I want to, you know, I'm in debt to APM because they got me sober, or is there a deeper meaning? And I'm kind of curious. And you touched on it before, so I kind of know the answer, but I want everyone else to hear.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to try not to cry. So the first time I came to APN saved my life. And the second time I came has allowed me to live my life. And that's a gift that is incredible. And if I can share my story, which is a terrifying thing for me, to potentially make a family member look bad, which I actually can't do, but, you know, to be out there and be seen like this, if it can, someone can hear it or see it or relate to it, you know, watch it and just feel hope or be like, wow, I can relate to that. Like, you know, maybe I should change this. That's what it's about, is reaching, even if it's one person, to say, hey, you're not too broken. Like, you are worth it. Like, you can love yourself.
It gets better.
That it gets, I mean, I am living a life that is 10,000 times more incredible than I thought it would be on my way up here the first time. Yeah. And it only gets better. Only gets better.
You know what I used to think, you used to bother me in early recovery when people said, I'm a grateful alcoholic. I'd be like, you're an idiot, right?
I am a grateful alcoholic.
You're an idiot, right? But now, you know, like, I am the most, you know, like, thank God for it. And that's what I hear in you. And it's beautiful. But again, for the person that's listening, hey, like, shit, you know, like, it can turn. It can turn. I don't hold any shame or guilt in my alcoholism. I am proud of what I've made of it. You know, I've wise-minded the shit out of it and turned it, radically accepted it. And I've, you know, turned it into something positive. And, you know, it's part of who I am. It'll always be part of me, but it isn't who I am. Yeah.
I will not allow it to dictate who I am. And it will always be part of me, and I'm grateful for it. And I will talk to anybody and everybody about it openly and honestly, because I have nothing to hide.
Love it.
No, and I'll kind of end with this. Is like, I think this episode is very unique, right? Because you have individuals that come to the lodge, right? Specific clients that aren't leaving, when I say a lot behind, wife, husband, kids, right? They're going because maybe it's like they're taking time off from work, but it's like they don't feel the extra pressure of leaving intangibles at home, right? Maybe it's just like leaving a work, right, or something. You had to get up, right, and you were. It seems that you were the heart and soul of your family, right? Like you were a stay-at-home mom, right? And like I've experienced from my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and like she probably worked harder than my dad did.
Runs the ship.
It runs the show, right? Yeah. And so to be able to know that you're leaving them to get better is, number one, inspiring, but two, I know there's a lot of other moms or dads that are coming to APN and having to go through that process and unsure of what to do, right? And not confident in that decision, right? It's like you justify so many things as a drug addict or alcoholic. It's like, how am I going to leave my kids? I can't leave my kids.
We've got excuses for everything if we don't want to do it. Always. You can find 10,000 excuses, you know, and I don't excuse anymore.
No, it's incredible. It really is.
At least I do my best. There's some days
but
where...
Of course.
I want to piggyback too on this. And like Katy said, I want to be helpful to people, right? But think about how many moms and dads are going to listen to this, and how many are going to be on that cusp of the 2-week mark. Hey, I need to go back. I need to be a mom. I need to go.
There's always somebody to take care of your kids.
And they're going to hear that. Yeah, I get it. They're going to hear your story and say, hey, you know what? Maybe 1 out of 10 hears that and say, maybe I should stay because it worked for this lady, Katy. And how cool is that you could help save that person's life?
I hope and pray because
yeah.
I don't have words.
Yeah, I agree.
Which
is unheard of with you.
Shut up. So I just know I can still feel what it felt like right before I came here. And I don't ever want anyone to feel that way.
Yeah.
And I want to give the gift of where I am and how it feels and the hope.
Yeah.
No, it's incredible. It's incredible.
What a talk.
Yeah, no, listen,
Powerful.
very powerful. Very appreciative that you came here. I know.
Thank you.
You know,
shout out, Katy.
Yeah, shout out your family for allowing this, right? I know your 5-year-old didn't want you to come, right?
And we had my mother-in-law's funeral yesterday too.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Sorry for your loss.
That was a tough one, and it couldn't have come at a better time to come the day after. It's like better than an AA meeting.
Suit up and show up.
Hell yeah.
Love it.
Big girl panties.
Love it.
Well, yeah.
Thank you.
So I appreciate you coming. Thank you a lot. It was very inspiring for me, and I know it'll be inspiring to listeners. But for everyone out there, if you're looking for our other podcasts or want to see this at any time, visit apn.com/podcast. That is apn.com/podcast. And if you want to communicate with us, please reach out to us at pod@apnlodge.com. That is pod@apnlodge.com. Thank you again, Katy, and looking forward to more videos with you.
Thank you, guys. Check you later, home slice.